Next, we have question number 2 from race number 2 of the Secureum Bootcamp. So in this question, it says, based on the comments and the code shown in the Secureum DAO snippet, so remember that we have a decentralized autonomous organization contract here, it A has a guarded launch via circuit breakers, which have been correctly implemented for all state modifying functions. So a guarded launch means that when a protocol launches, you might not be quite so sure about how safe it is, especially if it has some new technology, some new ways of working, inner workings and stuff like that. So you might want to release it, to launch it in a very restricted manner. Maybe you only want to allow a wide list of addresses to participate with or to interact with the contract. Maybe you only want to have a very restricted amount of funds that people are able to deposit. Maybe you don't want to allow people to deposit too much at once. And maybe you can later remove those restrictions of the protocol when you think some time has passed and you're more certain about the protocol's maturity. So it says there's a guarded launch via a circuit breaker. Guarded launch and circuit breaker doesn't really make sense, for me at least. There are two different things. A circuit breaker is something where you check your assertions during the execution of a function, and if you notice that something really bad has happened that should not have happened, you pause the contract. Just like a real world circuit breaker, like a real world circuit breaker that breaks when there is some overload on your electricity, basically. Here as well, it should be some assertion that is checked during the execution, and when this assertion is broken, the entire contract is put into some paused state so that an expert can take a look to make sure that everything was all right and nothing went in unexpected ways, basically. So that is a circuit breaker. A guarded launch via a circuit breaker, maybe you turn off circuit breaker later after like you launch your protocol with a circuit breaker, which you later turn off because you think, okay, I don't think it's necessary anymore. Maybe that's the intention here, but not sure. Either way, there is no guarded launch or circuit breakers in the code. The only thing we have, which maybe we could make an argument for that it represents something like a guarded launch, is that people can only use it once admins have decided it is time to open it. At least that was the intention with this open DAO function, which is only callable by admins, but as we have seen in the previous question, this actually doesn't work. Anyone can open the DAO. So yeah, what else does the question, the option say? Correctly for all state modifying functions. Well, yes, the only when open function might be correctly applied to all the relevant functions for members. So yeah, maybe that could be argued, but as we said, not really, because even if the guarded launch that is referred to here is this opening of the DAO, even then it is not correctly implemented. So A is not true. Next we have zero address checks have been correctly implemented. Zero address checks means that there is some parameter that is being passed into a function, and we should check whether this address is a zero address, because things like that, things like zero addresses, can happen from time to time in Solidity. So do we have a function where addresses are passed in? And if we look at the code, the only function where an address is passed in is here in the constructor. And well, yes, it has a require which checks for the zero address, but it does the opposite of what a zero address check should do. It wants that the admin must match the zero address. Instead, it should be the other way around. It should be unequal to the zero address to prevent an admin from being the zero address. So this is the only check that is related to the zero address, and it is certainly not true that it is correctly implemented, so B is also not a correct option. Then we have C, which says that all critical privileged role functions have events emitted. So it is a best practice that all the privileged role functions, meaning all the functions that administrators can call, and those functions have some critical aspects to the protocol, like pausing, unpausing the contract, changing the administrator. All those things should really have an event so that they can be monitored for in an easy manner. So the question is, do we have events emitted for these? So for example, remove all members, set membership fee. And we can see here that these two are definitely two critical functions, and they do not emit any events, and they also do not have this ... So we also can't assume that those functions, that those event emissions are just not here, but they are actually correctly implemented, which we have to assume. There's no ... here, so I don't think we should assume that. So indeed, we have critical functions that are privileged because they're only admin, that are missing a event emission. So C is therefore also not true, because not all critical privileged role functions have events emitted. So at the end of the day, we have D, which is correct, which is that none of the above are true. And that's it.